on? Welcome to the Dad Edge podcast. I'm Larry Hagner, your host and founder of this show. Welcome to halfway done with the year of 2020. Yes. It has flown by. We are halfway done. Question is have you achieved your goals? Are you creating the relationships that you truly want? Are you mastering your finances? Are you becoming that leader in your business or job or whatever you want to call it? If the answer is no, I ask you to look around of your inner circle and see who you're surrounding yourself with. If you're surrounding people that are going to help you up your game, then good for you. That's what you need to do. That is what we need to do. And speaking of upping our game, we've got a great guest for you guys today. Arlene Pellicane. I'm kidding. Pellicane. She is a speaker and author of several books, including Parents Rising, 31 Days to a Happy Husband, and Calm, Cool, and Connected, 5 Digital Habits for a More Balanced Life. Yes, that's a handful of books right there. Arlene has been a featured guest on the Today Show, Fox and Friends, Focus on the Family. She hosts the Happy Home podcast. She lives in San Diego with her husband, James, and their 3 children. Today, she comes on and explains a few things. Number one, how women can actually create a happy husband. So just go ahead and share this podcast with your wife. She gives several different pieces of advice of how women can actually make their husbands happier. I mean, not make their husbands happier, but, create more happiness within their relationship with their husband. She's also going to talk about one of her niches is what screen time does to our kids, what it actually does to their brain, and how kids can lose interest in sports and school and anything and everything creative if they have too much video game time, and how to measure if our kids are getting too much screen time in general. We are definitely faced with an epidemic and challenges that we have never faced as parents. Our parents really didn't have to worry about it, and now we're up against something that our kids are actually exposed to, and we're exposed to as parents that we've never done. And what's going to happen is our kids are going to be a heck of a lot smarter when it comes to raising their kids with screen time, because it's going to be our generation that kind of messes us up. But I really feel that we are on the cusp of really understanding what this is doing to us, what this is doing to our kids, what's doing to our brains, our relationship, the whole 9 yards. And that's what Arlene comes on and talks about today, is what these things are doing to our brains, to our kids, to our relationships. She just wrote this book, Calm, Cool, and Connected, 5 Digital Habits for a More Balanced Life, and she goes in depth with that. We had a lot of fun on this show. I think you guys will get a lot out of it, especially what it means for you as a parent who's raising kids in a technology environment. That is today's show. All right, guys, no more talk from me. Here is my interview with Arlene Pellicane. There you go, Pellicane. All right, here we go. Arlene, how are you?
I am doing well. Thanks so much for having me on, Larry.
Hey, it's an honor to have you. Is it weird that we're going to be talking about parenting and screens and we're talking through a screen?
It is, believe it or not, it is actually not weird.
Okay.
And I get this all the time. Like, do you not see the irony that you are using a screen to talk to me when you are the person that's telling me to put away my screen? And it really comes down to intentionality and purpose. Like, I think about the old record player. It's like, you knew, okay, what am I going to do with this device? I'm going to play a record. It had one use, and that was great. Yeah. Same thing with the telephone. But now when we pick up an iPad or even a flat screen or whatever, it can do a million things. So the thing is intentionality. Like, if you're like, I'm going to use that to listen to this podcast because it helps me be a better dad. That's pretty cool. But if you take it and it's like, oh, look, I'm going to hold this for the next 4 hours because it can do 1,000,001 things, then that's where we have the problem.
Gotcha. I'm glad we settled that, because I didn't know if it was like, is this like having an AA meeting in a brewery? Like,
at the end of the podcast, you shall leave your phone, you shall mail it to Dad Edge.
That's right. I will take your phone and trade it in for something better. So not to worry. Right. Hey, so let's do this. Let's start with your background, your childhood. This is obviously a parent-focused show, a dad show. This is obviously your wheelhouse. I'm always so genuinely curious about what your childhood looked like, what it was like growing up for you.
Yeah, I am an only child. Oh. So now that I have 3 children, I think like, man, my childhood was really boring. I guess I had a cat, It's like, this was different. But my mom and dad came from Indonesia, and my dad wanted to be a doctor here in the United States. So now as I think about it as a mother, my mom was pregnant with me when she came to America. So that was pretty brave. And she didn't speak any English. My dad spoke very little English. So my mom learned from watching Sesame Street and soap operas.
There you go. There you go.
So I have had a very happy childhood. So one of the things I love to do is help people create a happy home, because I believe out of that happy home, you just have so much more to offer to the world. And so just to help people, moms and dads, to get along together and to encourage them in their parenting, because I was fortunate enough to grow up in a happy home. And I do think that can be replicated, even though if you didn't grow up in a happy home, you could still create one.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. So I think there's something in the water here lately with the guests that I've had on, because a lot of people have had some very happy childhoods. So that's good to know. And you have 3. And
I have 3.
What's the mix there? Age?
Yeah, I have an oldest Ethan like you do. So
check that out.
My oldest is Ethan. He's 15, and Noelle is 13, and Lucy is 10. So I go boy, girl, girl. So we are in the high school sphere, middle school, and elementary school. Nice. So, my goodness, Larry, right? It goes so fast. It used to be they're all in elementary school, 1 school, so easy. Now it's like 3 schools. But you know what? It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
That's cool. How'd you come up with the name Ethan? I have a story behind mine. And
oh my goodness, funny. This is a great story. Yeah. So my husband and I, his name is James, and we basically, you go through your lists of these are the names I like, these are the names you like, and then you see the overlap. And Ethan was one that overlapped. We just both liked the sound of it. Sounded strong, steady, just has a nice sound to it, but my husband really liked the name Moses. But I was like, honey, we cannot name this boy Moses, because then I was going to let my people go. And Moses, are we really going to name him Moses? And then we were going back and forth on this, and there were balloons that literally dropped from the sky and got stuck in our bushes. Right. So I was like, how weird. These balloons got stuck in our bushes. And we picked them up, and they said, happy christening, Ethan James. On the balloons. And I was like, how funny, because the middle name would have been James. That's what we were thinking. So we're like, there it is, Ethan James in our yard on a balloon. So we went with Ethan James. What really got my husband was saying like, hey, they might call him Moishi and, all these like nicknames for Moses. And he's like, okay, fine, I'm out. What's your Ethan story?
Yeah, no, I like that. You had like, it almost seems like just a sign, I don't know if it was karma, if it was the universe, if it was God. We're like, you will name this child this. I'm going to send a balloon.
So bizarre. Yeah.
Right. No. So my wife and I have known each other since 1996. We met in college. And when I say college, I meant kindergarten. Kidding. I wish. 1996, that's when the movie Mission Impossible came out. And Tom Cruise was Ethan Hunt. That's before Tom Cruise went off the rails. And Ethan Hunt, I was like, Ethan, that's a cool name. My name, Larry, is super cool. Yes. I don't know in what universe it's cool, but somewhere.
I think it's as cool as Arlene, actually.
Right. See? Yeah. So anyway, Ethan, and my wife was like, I love that name too. So we had that name picked out for 10 years before he was even born. Goodness. And then he was born in 2006. And then like literally that year, there was like 3 or 4 Ethans in his class. It was like in the top 5 most popular names.
Totally.
So it's like everybody like maybe saw that movie and was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, we love this name, Ethan. It's so true.
So, okay, cool. So 3 kids. How long have you been married?
We've been married 21 years.
21 years?
21 years.
I know you're never supposed to.
Like a flash, I tell you. A flash.
You got married at like 15? Like,
please, yes, absolutely. We're really old, actually. My husband and I are very old. We will both turn 50 next year. Can you believe
Stop.
That? I'm serious.
I would never have guessed.
I know. God bless you.
All right. Okay. So
that's another podcast. No, I'm kidding.
On the side, I teach people anti-aging techniques.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yes. I use a special cream.
All right. So let's get into what you're doing today. Parenting space, screen space. I want to start where you started with this, which is how did you even get into this space of just parenting in general?
Yeah. So it was, the idea of I love to speak and I love to write. So it's write what you know, write what you're passionate about, what you love. And I realized I love the family. I love to strengthen the family. I love to encourage the family. I love when a mom's eyes light up and she's like, I get it. And a dad says, I've been afraid to do that with my teenager, but I'm going to do that starting today. I love that. So that's how it started. And then it just became the umbrella of, the happy home. How can I write? So it was 31 days to becoming a happy husband, 31 days to becoming a happy wife, all these things. And so those were, 31 days to a happy husband. That's my husband's favorite. And that's about what can a woman do to go back and dream about her spouse again. And instead of all the energy going to the kids, how can some of that energy go back to her husband? And that's a fun. Every 2 or 3 years, my husband's like, you need to reread your own book.
Right. Right. Yes. I mean, the one crazy thing about being in this space, I'm in the dad space, you're in parenting and marriage, and imposter syndrome can wreak havoc in your head, Yep. So I get that, but share with me, just share with the audience. And by the way, guys, you can forward this to your wife if you want. Can. Okay. So now we got that out of the way.
That's right.
What are the ways to a happy husband?
Yeah. So I take the word dream, and a lot of this is just the woman falling in love with her man again. Just her seeing him with the eyes that she used to. We laugh that when we were dating, James and I could look at each other for hours, and just like caress each other and touch each other, and now after you're married 21 years, you have 3 kids, you like give a quick touch. Okay, bye honey. see you later. So how can you get back to that? Right. So I take the word dream and the idea of dreaming together again. And then I interviewed 31 men and asked them, what is it that your wife does for you that really helps you, makes you feel loved, etc. And so the D is domestic tranquility. How can you feel like this is my castle, instead of like everyone else takes over and I kind of rent a room in this house. But so domestic tranquility, build a home that your husband likes being in. The R is respect, respecting your man. It doesn't have to be earned or deserved, just like love for us doesn't have to be earned or deserved. You respect him. You chose him. You respect him. Eros is that romantic, erotic love that kind of is the glue there to remember that your man loves to connect with you physically. The A is attraction, to keep trying to be attractive to your spouse. So that means smiling, being nice, common courtesies, put on some lipstick, that kind of thing. And then the M is mutual activities, do things together. Side by side. Might not be your favorite thing in the world, but sit on the couch with him while he's watching football, go mountain biking with him, which is what my husband and I do. So it's so funny, right? So my husband loves mountain biking, and I'm the girl that like can barely bike around the block without hitting something. So it's just like, what in the world? So he's learned to go biking hardcore with the kids and then he goes easier with me. But it's just that whole point. What got me was one day he said to me, you know what, Arlene, biking is one of my favorite things in the world. And when I look over my shoulder, I don't want to see like a guy friend there. I want to see you there because you're my best friend. And that got me. I was like, okay, let's get in the bike shop. So that's when we were engaged and I bought my first mountain bike. And believe me, I've fallen so many times and hit so many things. But the deal is mutual activities, do things together. It's so important.
Oh man, you had me at everything.
At mountain bike. Yeah, exactly.
Everything you listed, I was like, yes, and yes, and right. And yes again. So yeah, I resonate with all that. It's funny you talk about like I was joking with my wife the other day. I was like, why do you give me the wedding crashers hug lately? And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, like the ass out hug, couple pats, 2-pat hug, like I'm trying to do other things. And she's like, I do not. I was like, hey, you kind of do. And then like the next time she hugged me, she did it. And I was like, see, wedding ass out hug,
That's hysterical.
She's like,
something for us to improve upon.
Right. But she was like, she's like, you know what? You're so right. She goes, I guess I really haven't paid attention. She goes, I didn't. And then she like brought it in, she's like, bring it in for the real thing. So,
right.
Right.
That's awesome.
So that was good. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So got the husband thing down. Definitely. You're welcome, guys.
Yes.
And
men love this when I share this because I go around and I give this talk to women and men are like, I like this talk. This is a good talk. So that's 31 days to a happy husband. You can give that as a gift to your wife if you dare.
That's right. Don't worry about it, guys. We will have it in the show notes. So not to worry about gooddadproject.com/274 for this show. Just forward it to your wife. Okay. Let's move on to your parenting and that aspect of what you do.
Yeah, my latest book is Parents Rising. And it's just this idea, right? That it used to be maybe that your mom and dad were really big and the kid was like seen and not heard. But now it's flipped, where it's like the mom and dad are really small and the kid is like, I want ice cream. You know, both the dad and the mom are like, what flavor, dude? What flavor? What can we do for you? You know, so this is trying to strike that balance again, saying, wait a minute, the home works best when children obey their parents and not the other way around. Like the Bible had that right. So that just works best. So the whole idea of these principles like routine and boundaries, that you have those for your kids, that parents are the ones calling the shots and not the kids. Part of this book was born out of an experience I had in elementary school with my kids, where I was volunteering as a parent and we were all in the NPR and we're trying to get the kids to line up for a game. Like, this is fun. Like, you are a child and you're going to have fun. You're going to play a game. And I saw this parent tell these kids, get in line. And this little third grader just put her hand on her hip and was like, make me. And I'm like, what? A third grader? Like, there is no way in our generation that some child would have told a parent, right, make me. So I just thought, why are kids so bold? And they think they have so much authority, and that the parent is supposed to just lay down and be like, oh, forgive me. What do you want to do? You know, so it's just that idea. And the first chapter is amusement is not the highest priority, because right now I think parents feel like a cruise director. Like, how can we entertain and amuse you so that you're happy and we're happy? But the idea here is, wait a minute, you're going to be an adult someday. And a good adult is not an amused adult. A good adult is like responsible, brave, like a doer, like empathetic. You know, that's a good adult. And so realizing that, wait a minute, maybe this iPad thing is not the best course of action. And that's kind of what started me down the screen route.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard of Cal Newport, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
So good. And
yeah. I saw that you had him on the show, Minimalism. So good.
Yeah. And we also had on Cameron Adair. Do you know Cameron?
Okay.
You guys got to make, he started the organization Game Quitters. So screen time stuff, but more towards video games.
Yeah.
Talk to us about it. Actually, we can go one of two ways. We can either segue into technology now, or we can stay on this like, hey, here's what we need to be doing as parents versus like the boat cruise and entertaining and parents are small and the kids are big. Yep. So let's
go with the parent thing first and then go to technology. Cause I just want to tell you dads, you guys are good at this. Like, you're good at being like, you know what? You just need to go to bed. Whereas the woman tends, now this isn't for every single person. This is a generalization. I know that. But I know in our home is reflective of a lot of homes where I would be like, oh, let them stay up just a few more minutes. Let them finish this up. And it's not going to hurt. You know, that's like the mom. We're accommodating. We're like, oh, let's just make an exception. We're the softie. So typically when a kid comes to the parents, oh, we'll go to mom because mom will let us do that. Whereas dad, you know, hey, I remember Noelle in our middle when she was like 2 years old, she would not let me wash her face. Whenever I washed her face, you'd think I was trying to murder her. You know, she's just squiggling around all over the place. But when James, my husband, washed her face, she just was perfect, like an angel, just like perfectly still, like a statue. And one day, after seeing this for many days, I humbled myself and I just said, honey, how do you do that? Like, I cannot get her to be still when I wash her face. How do you do that? And he's like, looking at me, it's so easy. She knows she can get away with that kind of stuff with you. And she knows she can't get away with that kind of stuff with me. And I was like, oh, and I tell you what, it is so true in so many areas of parenting where the mom will over accommodate. And then we have all these headaches where the dad's like, man, we don't go for that. Get in the car. And it works. And so for you dads, I just want to encourage you, even if your wife rolls her eyes at you or whatever, just keep doing that. And don't let her scare you into stop being a man and stop giving that leadership, because, you know, sometimes we don't recognize it in the moment, but there's been many times where I'll look at my husband and I'll think like, thank God you're here to toe the line and to make sure that we stay within these boundaries. So really that is a strength that you bring to the home. And maybe your wife does not appreciate that at this exact moment, but there will come a time where she will appreciate it and she'll see it and she'll be glad that you chimed in. So different is not bad, it's good. Like we're created this way for a reason. One that's going to be more stern, one that's going to be more soft. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you as the man are the softie. I've certainly heard that, where it's like, oh, my husband lets him do anything. And then the wife is the one that's like, you gotta stop playing that video game or you have to go to bed at this hour, so whatever it is. But do that role because that role is really bringing rebalance to your universe. It's a good thing.
So like complementary roles. I really like that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I didn't really understand where you were going with that until you said what your husband said. And I was like, even as a kid, I remember like, I know what I can get away with my grandma, but not my grandpa or my mom or my dad. Yeah, I get that. I don't know. I'm just going to share this with you. I really resonate with the washing of the face. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And then I realized I'm like, I'm using the plate scrubber, the metal one for the face. And that's why they didn't like it.
Be very rough. That's not going to be good.
I don't know why he's screaming but
wrong side, put the sponge down.
Right. I get that. I really get that. My wife and I are very, I would say definitely very complimentary of each other as far as when she's the heavy and I'm the heavy. My wife is a pretty tough, strong mother. We have four boys. So she's a strong mom of young men. That's what I call her. She's affectionate. She's supportive, but she's also like, she doesn't take anything at the same time. On the other hand, there are some things where like, she'll say like, so for instance, we were having this discussion. She's like, and this is by far our own fault, but we were having this discussion the other night over dinner and I'm like, I am so sick and tired of us making one thing for us, one thing for this kid and one thing for this kid. Right. And our kids are picky eaters. And she's like, and I was like, you know what, tomorrow we're having lasagna. And she's like, but the other two won't like that. I was like, you know what, who cares? I was like, because here's the thing. When I was young, and when you were young, our parents told us, well, this is what's for dinner. So you can eat it or you cannot. And I was like, and I was scratching my head and I was telling my wife, and I was like, you and I are such in the bad habit of being like, this is what we're making for one, and this is what we're making for the other, and this is what we're making. Why don't we just be like, this is what's for dinner? Yeah. If you don't like it, hey, that's totally okay. And you don't have to eat it, but this is what we're eating. And if you choose not to eat it, there's not another selection. You just got to eat it. So I think that's really our fault. And sometimes we, as my wife and I, we have to remind each other like, hey, we're the ones in charge here. Right. We are the ones in charge. So
that's such a good example. Like I have this book, 31 Days to Becoming a Happy Mom. And we did this little ad for it. And in it, I, as the mom, came up like a waitress. And what would you like? Cheese pizza. And what would you like? Chicken nuggets. And what would you like? And my one girl's like, don't forget the ice cream. We were doing it like a little spoof, but it's so true. And it's just like, okay, everybody's eating this or not, because think of your poor wife. Like that is a lot of things to cater to every day of her life. And it's something that could be changed. So I love that. We have certainly sent people to bed without being completely satisfied and full. It's okay.
Right. And I think people forget like, oh my gosh, if they went to bed without dinner, what would happen to them? Like, and I'm like, there are people that fast for days. Okay. Like hunger will win and they'll eat the lasagna at some point. Promise.
Totally. And my goodness, lasagna, that's a hard one.
It's very tough. It's very hard. Up there with broccoli, right?
That's right.
What else?
So let's talk about broccoli for a second. So here's the deal.
I didn't know we were segueing.
I know we can segue with the broccoli. So here's the thing with screen time a lot of times, right? So when your kid plays a video game or they're watching something, it's very gratifying. And, it's like, yay. So somebody was telling me that there was this little preschooler who loved this little basketball app. And every time they shot a basket, it like sparkled and cheered and you did all this really cool stuff. So the grandparent was looking at that and thinking, oh, this kid loves basketball. I'm going to get them one of those little tiny hoops, for Christmas. Like that'd be so cool. So they get them the real hoop. The kid's so excited. The kid finally makes their first basket and then just stands there and it's like, nothing happened. And the grandparents are like, you made a basket. Good job, buddy. But he's like, nothing changed. Right. And he was so disillusioned, like it didn't sparkle. It didn't explode. And he ended up not playing that real basketball, but instead sitting on the couch using his phone to play the fake basketball they gave the stars. So here comes the broccoli. When a kid eats broccoli, when a kid does the right thing, kid does their homework, kids obey you, whatever, it's not like things go, whoa, good job, kid. Like things, fireworks do not happen around your dinner table when your kid finally eats the Brussels sprouts. And so we've kind of engineered this system where kids are so used to like, wow. And if it doesn't produce a wow, they're like, they don't do it that much. So that's one reason, especially when your kids are young, to really limit that screen time so that when they really do shoot that first basket, they're like, that's cool. Instead of, that's all that does.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it do a whole lot more on my iPad. So broccoli, that's part of life. And so sometimes the amusement, it draws us away from the wonders of broccoli.
Actually, so the theme I'm really picking up from you is it desensitizes you.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. Where a simple pleasure is no longer, it's not a big deal. Because it's like, I'm used to we older people, we used to wait a whole week to watch our show.
Oh my God.
Then we'd only get to watch one of them with commercials.
I only get to watch one episode of Knight Rider. Such a rip-off.
Right? And so that was like exciting. Once a week, you look forward to it. But a kid now, it's like, man, I can stream this whole thing back to back, no commercials, and my mom delivers me food while I do it. So we've just got to be careful not to overindulge our kids with tech because it's just so easy to do that.
So, but yeah, before we even dive into tech, is there anything else you want to cover as far as parenting goes? This is gold, by the way. Yeah,
I think one thing that dads are so good at is that tone that says, "This is the instruction, go do it." It's not like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Like moms can kind of get either crazy or we get super wordy. John Roseman is the psychologist who was just awesome. And he said the mom of yesterday used to say, pick up your room. And the kids picked up their room. But the mom of today, and so just understand this about your wife, the mom of today is like, oh, honey, we're going to have some people over in about an hour. And it would be so fabulous if your room looked nice. Wouldn't that be a nice impression to make the people feel good? So let's go ahead and pick up your toys. I'll come back in a few minutes. And I just know you're going to do a great job. Thanks. And you know what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing. And then 10 minutes later, the mom's like, oh, maybe you didn't understand my first message. We're going to put your toys away. So, let's make it a game. Let's make it a game. I'll put this in the basket. Then you put this in the basket. Let's see who can get more. No one's playing but mom. And so we've taken, as women, these really simple instructions and we've made them huge paragraphs that the kid's like, I have no idea what you're asking me to do. And we've made it a question. Would that be all right with you? Is that okay? We're going to have dinner, okay? And things are a question. And so for us moms, we've got to be like less wordy and more statements. We're going to have dinner. So as dads, you kind of naturally do that already. So just keep doing that and just understand that about your wife. And then again, if you think she needs some help with that, have her read my book. But I guess sometimes it's not so popular coming from you. But it really is true that a lot of what we experience in parenting is the kids can feel like, oh, my parent is giving me an option here.
The option.
Yeah. So you don't want that. You want it to be a statement. So you want to lead. And dads are particularly good at this. So keep leveraging that in your family.
Okay, cool. I like that. I've noticed that when it comes to me and my wife, I am more the stern one. Like, because my wife is like, oh, hey, would you like to do some homework? I'm like, no, it's homework time.
Right. That's a perfect example. Yeah.
It's the homework time. They can choose like, hey, do you want to do math or science first? But it's homework time. Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot.
It's very funny because as you know, about screens that we've been kind of chatting about this whole time. So you would think listening to me and we'll be talking that, oh, she's so stern about that. But I'm the softie of the family. It's more my husband that's like, no, what are they doing? Get them off, get them off, get them off. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's okay. It's okay. So it's very funny.
What advice do you have though, as far as when you mentioned the dynamic sometimes with maybe women in general just being a little bit more soft, and men are kind of more like, oh, stern, this is the way we do it. However, I can see how tension would ensue if a man was like, if he presented that in the wrong way, like, why are you giving them the choice? Like, this is what we do. But instead, I think you have to have that conversation with them differently, right? Yeah. And for a woman to receive that, and for there to be, for the both parents to be on the same page, versus like the woman being like, well, why are you talking to me like that? Or like, why are we doing it your way? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a loving way. It's for that husband to speak in a loving way toward those. So not like why are you doing that? Because all of a sudden, of course, your wife's already defensive, like, well, why not? But more like, hey, babe, I just want to tell you, you're doing a great job with the kids. And maybe it's that for a few times. I just want to tell you, man, I've been noticing how you do that. And man, if I had to do that much laundry, I'd like be so tired. You're doing a great job. So you do like some of that so that she feels like, oh, he sees me. And then that gives you then more of a place to say, I hope this doesn't come across as I'm not trying to correct you in a bad way. I'm not trying to be snide or anything, but I've just noticed that you do this. And when that happens, I don't know, it just seems like it's not working that good. Maybe we should talk about it. Mm-hmm. Something like that. It's a softer approach, and that she may be more receptive to say, well, yeah, because she's frustrated too. So she'll say like, yeah, that drives me crazy when that happens. And then you could say something like, well, what if we tried this? What if you, instead of giving all these options, just gave one option and then stop talking? If you get angry, just leave the room, stop talking, whatever. So I think couching it in this, I am giving you praise as a parent. I appreciate you as a parent. I want to get better as a parent, just like you. And by the way, this might be helpful. Whatever you think, do with it what you want, but this might be something helpful.
And probably not use the words but or however, right? You're doing a really good job.
So hard, I know.
But
turn it into and. So turn your buts maybe into ands. I don't. It's very hard because whatever, like, if my husband wants to tell me something like, honey, we need to have sex more often, that kind of thing. It's like we joke that there's never a good time to say that. Right. You're waiting for this opportune moment where everyone is happy and blah, blah, blah. So there are some things you're going to say that no matter when you say it, it's not going to necessarily be received with love and roses. But there are things that do need to be said. And so I think it is important to have those conversations, and that not every conversation is this, and you need help in this area. Yeah. That there's other conversations that are like, hey, you're doing a great job. So you have 8 conversations, you're doing a great job, and you do 2 conversations, hey, here's a place maybe we could improve. That's going to feel better and be better received, I think, by your wife.
I like that. I actually found the ideal time to ask for more sex.
Yeah. When is that?
It's in our bedroom right before we have it.
Yeah.
Little disclaimer there. That never works. I, for some reason, at some point in our marriage, thought that was a great idea. And then I learned right away that is the worst time to ask for more sex, which is it's disastrous. So,
oh man.
For those of you newlyweds, you're welcome for that lesson. Don't make that mistake. I did. So, so let's dive into screen time. I feel like this generation of parents and kids, we're up against something we've never been up against before, and that's screen times. And and parents are just as bad with screens and phones, and it's pretty horrible, you know? And so talk to us about what does this do to the kid brain if they have too much of this?
Yeah. So you just have to think about it like if your child ate candy all day long, like something is physiologically happening to their body. Like their brain, it's affecting their brain, it's affecting their development, all those things. And in the same way, I'm holding a phone right now in my hand, and we would never think to hand a child like, oh, why don't you have some beer? Or, have these drugs? Or why don't you smoke a cigarette? Like none of us in our right mind would ever do that to give to a child. But we will give like an 18-month-old, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, 10-year-old, whatever, we'll hand over a phone, an iPad, and we won't think a thing of it, right? Because it is so normal, because it's all around us. And it's been marketed to us as being educational. Like, oh, if your child doesn't use this app, they'll be left behind. Or if your child doesn't, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth of the matter is that these devices have been programmed to be addictive. And that's a main problem. So your child, when they go, it's like, oh, they get this little dopamine in the brain that's like, oh, that felt good. That was very pleasurable. And you do that time and time again, and they want that. It's like putting a slot machine in a pocket, that they want to pull that lever and see what's going to happen next. There's that curiosity. And so screen time gives those intermittent rewards, like they're not really sure what's going to happen, what's going to be on, what YouTube video will come up next. It's kind of exciting. So you have these intermittent rewards, you have this dopamine of pleasure. And what happens is, in the real world, nothing replicates that. Like, if you have a boy who's super into a video game and then you offer them all these different things, hey, here's a bike, dude, here's a ball, here's a model that you can build. He's going to be like, that's really not as fun as playing my video game. So there's something happening in their brain that keeps them coming back. So it's addictive in nature. And then they've seen that the prefrontal cortex of the brain, that's like the decision maker. That's like, you should really get up and go to the bathroom now. It's like this decision maker. That part actually does not get blood flow while a child, for instance, is playing a video game. That part of the brain goes dark. And instead, all that dopamine and that pleasure, that's all lit up. So we just have to understand, wait a minute, what is this doing to my child's brain? And a really easy way to see how your kid is doing is, if you were to take away the video games, the Snapchat, the YouTube, whatever, for a period of time, is your kid okay? Like, if your kid, there, one differentiation I really liked was if your kid is a casual gamer, an at-risk gamer, or an addicted gamer. And the way you tell is, the casual gamer will play a game, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, kind of be like, okay, that was enough, and then go do something else. And then it might be several days before they ask again, like, hey, could I play that game? The at-risk gamer is like, hey, they're able to do this for more and more time. Like, the tolerance is there. Like, I can keep doing this. And it's not every few days or every week. It's like every day they're kind of like, hey, could I play that game again? And then you're like, hey, yeah, and wait for the weekend, buddy. And then, of course, you're addicted is like, hey, we're coming to dinner. And it's like, they're not moving. Or, hey, they used to do sports and they dropped out of the sports team because they don't want to do it anymore. Things like that. So we just have to understand, wait a minute, this is addictive by nature. What is happening in the brain? And here's the thing, a lot of it is what they're missing. So think of your child's brain as a big construction site, and roads are being paved to different places. When we first bought our home in Southern California, it was like a new development. So there were like no roads. It's like in the middle of nowhere. It's just this house. They're like, okay, I guess we'll buy this house. My parents told me they will build roads. Don't worry. We're like, okay. But can you imagine if we stayed in that house and no roads were built, and we're just like stuck in that house and just one road maybe to the grocery store and that's it? That'd be like so lame. But what's happening in a kid's brains is these pathways that go different places. This is a guitar. This is a friend. This is boredom at school. This is algebra. This is cooking. All these pathways are not being built because there's just one main road, and it just all leads to video games, all leads to the phone, all leads to passive consumption. That's a problem. So if you think of your child's brain that way, and you're like, I need a lot of pathways so that my kid has a lot of options of where they can go, what they can do, what kind of adventures they have when they grow up, that's when you're going to realize, okay, you can play for this long if your kid can handle it. But the rest of the time, you need to be doing other stuff, so that your brain knows how to do other things, even like social skills, even like looking at someone when they meet someone, looking someone in the eye, shaking their hand, saying their name. Hello, Mr. Smith. It's nice to meet you. Mr. Smith, what do you do for a living? That sounds interesting. Tell me more about it. Can you imagine if a 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old could do that you'd be touted as the best dad in the world. Like, what in the world are you doing with your kid that they can do that, right? And it's so simple. So video games, all that stuff, it's one part of the brain that can easily take over, where your kid has so many other skills that are so much more important to learn.
That's absolutely terrifying.
Right.
Like, while I'm recording this, so my wife is out right now, and my 5-year-old is down playing Minecraft, and my 4-year-old's on an iPad.
You're right.
So like, I'm sitting here thinking like, talk about imposter syndrome, right?
No.
I almost want to be like, hang on, get off the iPad now.
Get off right now.
Yes. Don't you know you're not building roads? Like,
you got one road to the 7-Eleven and that's it, buddy. You need more.
You're living by yourself.
You need more.
Wow. Okay. So
let me tell you, let me just tell you practically speaking, because I don't live under a rock. Like, we have technology in our home, but there are just certain practices that we just think having your own device, it's just too easy to have it so easily accessible. Remember the TV of yesteryear? You couldn't just like pick it up and take it to the restaurant and pick it up and take it shopping with you and pick it up. And, so it was like it had a place.
Oh my God.
But now since everything's mobile, it doesn't have a place anymore. So it takes over every space. So for us, what that's looked like is no personal iPads, no personal phones for the kids. If they need to do their homework, we have desktops, we have laptops, like we're doing just fine. So they can certainly do their homework online. And they do get in middle school an iPad, a laptop in high school issued from the school. So we do have computers in the home, but they don't have their own personal, even as an 8th grader and as a 10th grader. So you can tell if your child is like, I am the only one who doesn't have a phone, you can be like, there's some crazy lady on the Dad Edge podcast with a 10th grader who doesn't have a phone yet,
Right.
So it's just systems that we've put in place that we think will allow our kids. Technology is super easy to learn. The argument is, well, what if your kids are left behind? And here's the deal. They did a study at UCLA where they took 12 people who never were on the internet and then 12 people who were always on it. They had them online and they scanned their brains and they did look different. The ones who were always on, they showed like quick decision making, periphery vision for those banner ads, things like that. They told the novices, just go online for an hour a day and come back to us after 5 days. So here are these novices. They've now spent 5 hours on the internet. They scan their brains exactly the same as the experts. And they learned that very quickly the brain can learn technology. And just think of it. You've never had to tell a 2-year-old, here's what you do with the iPad. Let's get out the manual, son. It's really easy. It's really easy. But can that same person, that's easy to learn technology. But what about reading? What about reading for like an hour straight? Is that easy? No, but that's going to be required in life, right? In school. So for us to realize that, wait a minute, this is a lie. Technology, that's going to be super easy to learn. It's the other skills, managing your anger, being appreciative, being able to apologize in real time, paying attention in school, being able to get through a book. Those are the skills. There's not an app you can download that's got to be learned without screens. And so that's a huge component that I think a lot of us are missing. We shouldn't be so afraid that our kids can't learn tech. We should be more afraid that they're not going to be ready for relationships, for life, to be the boss, to have a boss, to be responsible with money, all those things.
Okay, now I'm terrified. We're going to end this show. So guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to go yell at my kids to get off their screens.
Don't be afraid. This is time. You can make those changes. It's possible.
Yes. I didn't know that study about, I guess the human brain that can learn technology pretty quickly. So that's really reassuring to know. The other thing too is, I've had a couple of guests who have come on who have been experts in screens and that kind of. Cam Adir was one, Cal Newport was another. Yeah. And one thing that I love hearing from my kids are, I'm so bored. I'm like,
right.
Really?
I must be doing something right.
I know. And before I knew that information though, it was like, no, boredom's a good thing. Boredom is where you I have to go create something now in order to not be bored.
Yeah.
But before, when I would hear, I'm so bored, I'd be like, oh, well, let's figure out something for you to do, or let me entertain you or something like that. And now I love hearing it's okay to be bored because, and then I start challenging them a little bit. I was like, well, what cars do you want to play with? Or what puzzles can you put together? Or something like that to just redirect them.
Yep.
The other thing too, you bring up, so I've got 2 olders. We call them the bigs and the littles. We have 14 and 12, 6 and 4.
Yeah.
So I did make the plunge with my 14-year-old to get him a phone. He started babysitting. And so we got him a phone but we are die hard about boundaries around that phone.
Yeah.
So there are certain times he can have it. There are certain times he cannot. And we're always checking in on the boundaries around that phone.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have Bark that's on it. So Bark is a technology that, watches his text messages and emails and making sure like there's no cyberbullying or violence or adult content or anything like that. But the thing that I took as a huge compliment was my 14-year-old was like, I am the only one that doesn't have a phone. There are 5th graders on my bus who have a phone. I'm like, I know. Isn't that cool? Like I would take it. I was like, dude, be careful what you tell me. Some things I take as a compliment.
That's right. That's so awesome.
And literally, I think he was by far the last one. To get a phone. So
I can't remember her name, but I remember reading in an article. It was, I think it's Athena something, but a Facebook executive who said the kid who gets the phone last in the class wins.
Yep.
And I just loved that.
I love that. So let me ask you this as we wrap up here today. What is the best resource that you have to educate parents on screen times? The good, the bad, the ugly, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So Dr. Gary Chapman and I, so he's 5 Love Languages, wrote this book, Growing Up Social, Raising Relational Kids in a Screen-Driven World. And we're actually updating this book. So this book came out in 2014. And, a lot has happened in 6 years. And so we're actually re-releasing this and retitling it for October. So October 2020, and it's going to be called Screen Kids. And I think that's going to be an amazing resource for parents. And then we're also making a companion book, Grandparenting Screen Kids, because we know there are a lot of grandparents out there who are taking care of their kids. So those for the fall, Screen Kids and Grandparenting Screen Kids. And my website's arlenepellicane.com. You can take a quiz. There's a quizzes tab and you can take one. Is my child getting too much screen time? Kind of give yourself a little self-assessment.
Oh boy. So you and Gary Chapman wrote this book?
Yes.
Dude, that is awesome.
Isn't that amazing?
I haven't had Gary on the show yet. He's always, and the funny thing is that I haven't even reached out to him, which I should. Now you say that, I'm like, I need to get him on the show.
Yes, absolutely.
He has changed my marriage without a doubt, and he doesn't even know it. So just
awesome.
Let him know.
5 love languages. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Let him know. Larry told me to tell you changed his marriage.
That's right. So that's right. Dad Edge podcast. He's coming at you. I'll tell him.
Well, Arlene, this has been so cool. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I thoroughly enjoyed you. You have so much energy and just so much fun to interview. And and I
thank you.
I love what you're doing in the world. Good for you.
Thanks so much, Larry.
You bet. So gentlemen, to find out everything that Arlene is doing, head on over to gooddadproject.com/274 for this show. This was absolutely amazing. So again, Arlene, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Gentlemen, go out, live with purpose, live with intention, and above all else, live legendary. Take care.